on worksheet 1-6, and what was the last one we did? We did number 15? Okay, cross off 17. We're going to cross all the way 17 through 26 off. We're not going to do the absolute value ones. Okay, don't worry about those. Okay, so we're on number 27. Number 27. This one will be an easier one. Okay, so 27, we have 3x plus 1, 5 minus 10x. I'm not going to write 5 minus 10x. I'm going to put it in the right order. Negative 10x plus 5. You don't have to do that, but it's a little bit easier if you do it. Okay? Remember, what we need to do is find critical values. And critical values are what makes the numerator or the denominator 0. In this case, the denominator is not 0. The denominator is 1. And it'll always be 1. We just have to find out where the numerator is 0. Okay? And we're supposed to have one side to have 0 on one side, and we have that, so that's good. If we don't have 0 on one side, we've got to make 0 on one side. So our critical values, remember you take the opposite of this over that, so negative 1/3 is a critical value. And negative 5 over the opposite of this, positive 10, which is negative half. Okay? Those are our two critical values. Negative 1/3, whoa, not negative 1/2. Wait a minute, hang on. Opposite of this, I screwed that up. The opposite of this over this. So negative 5 over negative 10, which would be positive 1/2. Okay, positive 1/2, sorry about that. And we draw our number line. Okay? All right, and then we make sure you put them in the right spots. Negative 1/3, positive 1/2. Okay? And here's the deal. I'm going to explain this to you guys, and I'm going to try to not confuse you. You don't have to know this. It's nice to know, though, okay? I told you guys back in Algebra 2 that they always flip-flop. You know, positive, negative, positive, or negative, positive, negative. They always flip-flop. But I think yesterday was the first time we showed you one that didn't flip-flop. It went positive, positive, or negative, negative. I forget what it was, okay? I want to make sure you guys understand why sometimes it flip-flops and sometimes it doesn't, okay? A concept you need to understand is this. When you multiply by a positive number, what happens when you multiply by a positive number? Does the number turn negative, or does it turn, or does it stay? Like, for example, if I take a positive number, and times by a positive number, that first number stayed positive. What if I have a negative number, and I times by a positive? What happens to that original negative number? It stays negative. Or wait a minute, hang on. I don't know what I said. Let's start over again. Start with the positive. I'm sorry, you're right. I think I said it right, but I clear everything. I don't know what I said.
Maybe you multiply by
We start with a positive number, and we times by a positive number, it stays positive. If I take a positive number or negative number and times by a positive, that negative number stays negative. Is that what I said?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I thought I said something else.
If you multiply, the sign stays the same.
Right. But what happens when you multiply by a negative number?
The sign flips.
The sign flips. Okay, so if I take a positive number and I times by a negative, that positive turns to a negative. Okay? Or if I have a negative number and I times by a negative, that first negative turns positive. Okay? So what we're getting at is when you times by a positive, the sign doesn't change. Okay? When you times by a negative, it does change. Okay? So what you need to understand is this. How do I want to say this? We'll get more into. We don't need it for this particular problem. We'll get it when we get to like the 35. Okay, so just keep that in mind that when we times by a positive, the sign doesn't change. Okay. And one more thing you need to understand is this. If I told you another concept that you'll need, you don't need it for this problem, but you'll need it here in a few minutes. If I told you that a few weeks ago when it was really cold out, if the temperature was 5 degrees, and then later on it was 3 below 0, was the temperature ever 0 degrees? Went from 5 okay, it definitely was. What if this? Now be careful on this one. What if the next day the temperature was, you look at the temperature and it was 4 degrees, then you look a little later and the temperature was 1 degree. Was the temperature ever 0?
You don't know.
You don't know. Very good. Very good. You don't know. Okay? Or how about this? What if it was 8 below 0, then later on it was 2 below 0? Was it ever 0 or above?
We don't know.
You don't know. How did you know that it was 0 when it went from -4 to +3?
You saw that.
Because it went from negative to
If
positive.
it goes from negative to positive, it has to hit 0. It's got to hit 0, okay? Has to. Keep that in mind. That'll help you out later on. Let's finish this problem, okay? Pick a number to the right of positive 1/2. These are going to flip-flop, okay? They're going to flip-flop. And I'll tell you when you can tell whether they flip-flop or they don't later on, okay? So, If I pick a number to the right of a half, let's plug in 1,000. 3 times 1,000 plus 1 is a positive number. If I plug in 1,000 here, negative 10 times 1,000 is a huge negative number. A huge negative number plus 5 is still a negative number. This is positive, this is negative. A positive times a negative is a negative. Do we follow that or not? I'm not interested in the number.
You're just seeing it. Right
All I
there.
care about is the sign, the positive or the negative. If I plug in, let's use 8 trillion. 8 trillion. You know what 3 times 8 trillion plus 1 is? A positive number. Negative 10 times 8 trillion plus 5 is a negative number. Positive times negative is a negative. And they're going to flip-flop. So this is positive, and this is negative. And again, I haven't told you yet how I know that they're going to flip-flop. We're interested in where it is bigger than 0. So where it's positive. So we're interested in here. Between here and here. In interval notation, we put negative 1/3, comma 1/2. Do we include them or not? The endpoints.
No.
Why? There's no equal sign there. Okay? And remember, we talked about this yesterday. If there's no equal sign, you don't include them. If there is an equal sign, you might include them. You might. You might not. You include them as long as it doesn't make 0 on the bottom. Okay? Let's get number 29. Okay, this one's a little tougher. X squared minus x minus 6 plus 0. We got 0 on one side. It's tougher because it's not factored. So we need to factor this thing. So we draw 2 sets of parentheses. We have 0 on one side. That's great. That's what we want. X squared is x next. Ignore your middle. Look at your last. Last term's negative. To multiply and make a negative, it's a positive and a negative. How do you times to negative 6?